Hi, I'm Nancy. Welcome to Mindful Yoga. Today, our theme is the spine. Some guidance from Chris Holmes at Kripalu Yoga Institute to help us think about how we have to be careful in doing yoga poses in relationship to our spine. The second theme is about warriors and being a gentle warrior. Well, how do you be a gentle warrior? One with confidence and awakeness that faces fears. So that is our second theme, thanks to Cyndi Lee. Please have a seat where you can settle down towards the earth. You could be in a chair or on blocks or blanket for this part. Let your weight be borne by the sits bones and the legs. And notice the breath. Feel the breath at the very center of your being. Bring your attention into your deep center, or one of the deep centers of the body, behind the navel, between the navel and the back of the waist, kind of at the front of the lumbar vertebrae that come up from the sacrum to about the waist level. Right between the navel and the back of the waist, centering breathing there, allowing the breathing to expand the back and sides of the lower ribs. 3 or 4 breaths, just letting the breath be right there. Ahimsa, or non-violence, is one of the seeds of yoga. How can a warrior have anything to do with ahimsa, not harming self or others? Now bring your breath up to the top of the lungs, expanding out from the heart center, out under the arms, front and back. And for a few breaths, breathe in the top of the lungs, heart center out. A sacred warrior is one who looks straight at their own fears with bravery and kindness to oneself. Now bringing those 2 breaths together, expanding from that deep center between navel and the back of the waist, and then expanding up through the heart, under the armpits, loading up into the throat. Letting the breath lengthen the spine, take out any compression between vertebrae. Breathing deep center, up to heart center. And just letting go, enjoying the exhale. This kind of gentleness is the seed for growing a warrior's heart. It means seeing what is happening here and now in any given situation, and then having the courage to open our beating heart to that. 2 more breaths. And bring the arms to the side. Let gaze follow the fingers as they rise up on one side. Gaze following the fingers just as far as they can. Being cautious of shoulders as they open, finding your range of motion. Bringing that gentleness of the warrior to your own body. And one time around the opposite direction. Other side, lifting up. Gaze following fingers, opening up through the shoulder. centered, awake, confident, and flexible. One more time. And once around the opposite direction. Today, we're bringing attention, as I said, to the spine. There are 4 hinges that we need to be careful of in the spine, 2 towards the bottom. The sacrum is here at the very bottom of the spine, and there's a place where the sacrum comes together with the lumbar spine, which are the 5 vertebrae, the big vertebrae at the bottom from the waist down to the sacrum. A second hinge, which is particularly vulnerable, is between the lumbar spine and the thoracic spine. So this point right at the back of the waist, where these larger lumbar spine turn into the gradually smaller thoracic spine, of which we have 12 going up to the neck. The next 2 hinges are up in the neck. So one of them is at the top of the thoracic spine. Right here is the thoracic spine, turns into the cervical or neck spine. And we often tend to flex out there as we are looking at something with our chin. And the last hinge is up here, the very top of the spine, where it comes into the bottom of the skull at the occipital ridge. And as we bring our chin out, we often extend up in that hinge at the back. So bringing the chin in order to keep that cervical spine and thoracic spine in line. Take away anything high that's underneath you now, coming onto a blanket if you're not there already. We'll start with a side bend, planting one hand, reaching up with the other hand, and stretching out under the armpit. Reaching up, feeling the arc in the upper middle spine. Keeping that hand planted keeps the lumbar spine very stable. So that lower lumbar spine gives us our stability. It does have some side bend in it. Now we're going to slide the hand out and over. And now you can feel perhaps some side bending in that lumbar spine. So the mid spine down to the lower spine does have the ability to bend from side to side. And the lumbar, the lower spine, also has the ability to lean forward and lean back. But what it doesn't have the ability to do much is to rotate. Coming up through center, we'll come into a slight rotation, bringing hand over to other thigh and hand back behind. We often do this. And it's easy to give the instruction, just anchor your hips. But as you look to the side, that asks for rotation in the lumbar spine, of which we only have about 2 degrees. So let that hip on the back side of your twist come up a little bit. Let the hips have their rotation, which will allow the lumbar spine to remain stable and to not strain it. Back and forth one more time. The lumbar spine has facet joints in between the vertebrae with kind of phalanges of bones that come out and interlock with each other. So if we rotate too much, we are really rubbing bone on bone. Coming back through middle, bring your feet together. You might have a diamond shape, or you might bring the heels closer in towards the groin. Find your place here. Hands might be on shins, ankles, or around feet and toes. Bear down through the sits bones. Let the gaze be soft. So you can come inside, feel the sits bones come down, lift up through the lower abdominal muscles, up all the way through the crown, long spine, and then coming forward just an inch or 2. Coming back up, inhale up. Exhale over. Perhaps feeling some stretch in the lower back. One more time, coming up. And as you come forward this time, if you would like to bring a C shape to your spine, stretching between the vertebrae. in this long tube of the spine that developmentally, slowly unfolding and coming up, developmentally is a long tube of kind of jelly-like material, and the calcium grows into that. So in a way, the spine grows, the vertebrae grow into the discs. Bring one leg out so that it's diagonal, the other one with the foot up somewhere against that leg. Adapt as you need to with your knee. One hand, the hand on the side of the extended leg slides down, turn the body, chest comes up towards the ceiling, gaze comes up, arm rises, and come over. Feeling that stretch, letting the hip come up a bit on the bent leg. Come back, come over once again. This time, let's bring the hand on the extended leg over to the opposite thigh, which increases the rotation, right? Let the hip on the bent knee side rise a bit so that you're taking the rotation in the hips and not forcing too much rotation in the lumbar lower spine. And we'll try the other side. Sliding the hand down the extended leg, gaze and chest up towards the ceiling, arm comes over, feeling what there is to feel. Returning back. Once more, bringing the arm over, hand comes to opposite thigh. Lift up a bit on that hip of the bent leg side, giving some break to the lumbar spine vertebrae, and come back up. We're going to come up to a standing position. We'll find our mountain pose here. Firm foundation through the feet. Let the gaze be soft as your mind's eye comes down into the center of your heels and out to the outside of the heel. Weight coming right down from hips, down through active thigh muscles, down through knees to ankles, onto the center to outside of the heels, and across to the big toe and the next two toes. Centered, balanced foot, lifting up from pelvic floor, no compression in those hinge places of the lower spine. Lifting up through the heart, relaxing shoulder blades down, tucking chin just a bit, ramping the head back just a 1/4 inch or so. No hinges in the neck area. Now let the chin come down to the chest and draw a necklace over the chest. Relax down through the body. We need to be tense. We tend to tense up as we get our alignment right, but then just trust the body and the bones to hold you up. Bring the chin up over the shoulder on one side and then on the other. Bring chin back through center. Gaze rises, chin guides the way up. Be careful to not come back too far on the back of the neck. Back down to chest. Up and back through neutral. Shrug the shoulders up towards the ears for 3, 2, and 1, and gently let everything come down. Shoulders, shoulder blades, muscles around the thighs, cheeks. And one more time, inhale up, shoulders to ears, and let it all come down. Bring the feet wider apart. Begin to turn the hips at the same time, lifting a heel, letting the knee come inwards on each side as arms join in to the empty shirt sleeve twist. Aware of the stability of legs and hips and lumbar spine. Aware of the hips opening, moving as we want them to move, and which they have to move as we walk and run through life. Sustaining that flexibility in the hips while maintaining the stability of the vertebrae and the lumbar spine. And we'll do some tapping here, some drumming to wake us up, bringing a hand up to the corner of the shoulders, and then to the breastbone. And then we'll come down to the solar plexus between the lower ribs, opening up energy channels down to the navel. And down to the lower abdomen. And then one hand in the front of the abdomen, one in the back on the sacrum. Finally, one hand on the front of the waist and one hand on the back of the waist. And let the arms go free and slowly come to a stillness. We're going to come into mountain once again and do a forward fold. Inhale as arms rise, gaze rises. Exhale, fold at the hips. Hands might be on opposite elbows. They might be dangling down. Hips come high. Feel the vertebrae coming out of any kind of compression. The lumbar spine, up the thoracic spine, all 12 of those vertebrae separating like pearls on a string, letting the head dangle, feeling the last 7 vertebrae of the neck. Then bring the hands to the shins, extend from the bottom of the spine up through the skull, up through the crown, and then forward fold one more time. Shake the head, no and yes. And trace the hands up the front of the legs, coming up to a standing position. Feet are under hips, knees and hips are soft. Hands come to the center of the chest. One hand comes to the shoulder with palm up, one comes to the waist with the palm down. One hand pushes up towards the heavens and one down towards the earth. Coming through center, opening up those energy channels from heart, lungs. Cyndi Lee in our reading reminds us about the relationship of a warrior to earth and heaven. Earth is always there and will let anyone sit on it. Heaven is always above you as a reminder of the vastness of your own nature. One more. Stretch up to heaven and down to earth. And back through center. We're going to come into a warrior 2 pose, since we're talking about sacred warriors today. Finding your warrior 2 pose with one foot right behind the other. Making any adaptations you need to. Feeling the space between the inner thighs. Opening through the chest, legs are dynamic, feet are balanced and centered. Weight in the sole of the back foot towards the back. Breathing here. Open your beating heart to whatever is happening in your life right now. Have the courage of the warrior. Then we'll come over into side angle. Forearm might come to the thigh and other arm might come up and over, feeling the length from the back foot up through the fingers. Option, you might bring that top hand up towards the heaven and the other fingers down towards the earth, the arm or elbow against the inner knee. Gaze might be forward to the horizon, or you might bring just a little bit more torque in the neck, particularly as gaze slightly goes up towards the ceiling. So finding whether this is a good adaptation for you. And then you might bring the forearm back up and come up. Back hand reaches down the thigh. Other fingers reach up towards the vastness of our nature. And one more time, going through both sides, perhaps opening up. Bringing yourself back up, strong through the legs, balanced and centered through feet, hips strong, so that the rest of you can lift up. And coming back through Warrior Two, hands come to the waist, bring the feet around, and the feet come together, toe heel inwards. We're going to now do a Warrior One. We're going to do all our warriors today. So Warrior One, our feet are a little bit apart. They're not right in front of each other, but they have some distance between them. Toes are forward on the front foot. Back foot might be at 30 degrees. If that bothers you, the toes can be forward. Bring the hips around so that they are at 9 and 3 aligned. One hand, the hand of the back leg comes to the glute to make sure you're engaged back there. Facing forward, opening the other arm up, extending up through the spine. Long, smooth spine with its natural curves. No hinge at the lower waist, at the back of the lower waist. And open, little tuck in the chin. Bring that arm down. Now both arms arch up, long through the spine. Smooth curve. Open. And come back down. Hands come to hips. We're going to come into Warrior Three. You might want a chair or a couch in front of you to catch your arms if you wish to do that. Bring the weight first into that foot. Establish your foundation leg. Dynamic, balanced, centered. Several ways to do this. You might lift the back leg. Decide how far you want it to come up. Arms might be along the sides. Energy coming back through the heel, through the leg. Arms might come out to the sides. They might come forward, clasp fingers, and reach forward with steeple fingers. And coming around. Let's do that one more time. Let yourself play around with a little bit. What's the best way to get into it? Another way, if you're coming into arms forward, is to bring the foot up and the arms up together. Kind of gives the warning to the foot and leg and hips that this is what we're doing and this is the balance we need to have. Fingers pushing forward, heel pushing back, and soft knee come down. Then we'll come to the other side for our warriors on this side. Back to Warrior Two. Finding the width that's good for you. It might be more narrow or farther apart. Connecting with the earth through the feet, bright in the arches. So the weight again in the center to outer heels and across to the big toe with arches slightly lifted. Dynamic legs. Uncompressed spine, open through the chest. Turning the head, looking out over the fingertips. You can always flip the palms up, let the shoulder blades just rest down the back and flip the palms so they're down. A sacred warrior is one who cultivates fearlessness by looking straight at their own fears without judgment or aggression, with bravery and kindness to oneself. Not an easy thing to do, as we all know. And then coming into side angle, your version. Perhaps one hand up to heaven and one hand down to earth. Perhaps a gaze up towards the sky. And then coming up through warrior two, gazing up towards the heaven, towards the vastness of our nature. And coming back once again to side angle. If you have arms spread, bring the elbow or forearm into the side of just behind the knee. Strong through the legs. Pivoting up, reaching up towards the fog, the clouds, or the sun. And coming back through center. Bring the hands to the hips. Bring the feet together. Turn and we'll come into warrior two, warrior one. So a little distance between your feet. Front knee slightly bent above the hip. Below the hip and above the ankle. Hands to the hip creases at first. One hand comes on to the glutes. Make sure there's some firmness there in the glutes, supporting that openness of the front of the hip. Inhale as other arm reaches up long through the spine. Coming back gently, opening pelvis to sternum and coming back. Then both arms come up, extend up through the spine as the arms rise, natural curves of the back, smooth, no hinge in the back of the waist, a little tuck in the chin. Keep the length and don't sacrifice that for trying to come back a long way and coming down. Now we'll bring the weight into the front foot, making sure that we have a balanced foot with a slightly lifted arch, knee right over the ankle, firm, a little soft, but very firm. Lifting the back leg, reaching back through the heel, perhaps reaching back through fingertips, coming at it as you wish. Arms might come out to the sides, might come forward. And then soften the knee, come down. And again, we'll attempt this one more time. Establishing your foundation leg dynamically, deciding how you would like to come into warrior three and what your warrior three is going to look like. And soften the knee, come down. It's always humbling for the warrior to wobble. That's probably important for warriors. We're going to do a quad balance, stretching out the front of our thighs. So again, bringing the weight into one foot, letting the inner eye come down into the centered outer heel and over to the big toe, lifted in the arch, strong through the lumbar spine, which is your stability here. Knee bends. You can take the foot in your hand, let knee come down towards the earth, lift up through the crown. If this is difficult for you, you can always have your foot on a chair if it's too hard on the knee. For 3, 2, and 1. And we'll come to the other side. Weight on the foundation foot. A focal point always comes in handy. Bending the knee, catching the foot, pressing foot into hand, knee going down towards earth, crown reaching up to heaven. Hand might rise up on the other side, reaching up along between fingers on the top and knee coming down towards the earth, foot rooting down. For 2 and 1, and bring it down. Now we'll rhythmically relax a little bit, bringing the weight into one foot. The other foot comes forward and points just a bit diagonally towards the corner of the room. There's distance between my feet. Knees are soft and weight is going to go back and forth between the front foot and the back foot. Opposite arm comes towards the front foot, back and forth. Opposite arm coming forward as your weight comes forward on the front foot. Establishing a rhythm here, allowing there to be movement in the hips, something we want to maintain throughout our lives, and also sustaining the stability in the lower lumbar spine. Feeling also, of course, some twisting through the thoracic spine, not doing much with the neck or cervical spine this time, even though that's the part of our spine that can really rotate the most. One more. Bring hands to hips, weight into the other foot comes forward, a little bit to the side. Knees are soft. Begin your rocking rhythm back and forth. Then arm that's opposite the front arm comes forward, both arms stretching out. Back and forth. Letting yourself be soothed. Two more. And bring the foot back. Feet are just slightly wider than hip width apart. We're coming into quarter moon, a side bend where arms come up overhead, fingers clasp, and we have steeple fingers up above, 4 fingers together. Root down through the feet. Arches are bright, lifting up through pelvic floor, up through diaphragm, up through the heart, up through the crown to the fingertips, and exhale over. Keeping length, not sacrificing the long spine to the side bend. This gives a long, nice stretch in the muscle, the quadratus lumborum, that comes from the pelvis up to the lower ribs. One more time on each side. Then reach up with both hands. Come down into a forward fold. Hands might just dangle there, or they might come back behind and tuck under the heels. Knees can be quite soft here and stay soft. You might stretch the hips up just a bit, finding a place of stretch for the hamstrings that's just right and not hurting, because that's another place that is a little dangerous between the glutes and the hamstrings. And then knees very soft, arms opening and coming up, hands coming round to the heart. We're going to do our balancing on one foot with the idea of leveling our hips. So we worked on this last week with the idea that one hip may be higher than the other. So if you weren't here last week, finding with your fingers or thumbs on your iliac crest, the top of your hips, whether one hip is maybe higher, maybe a shoulder's higher than the other, maybe one hip hurts more than the other. And if you can find that higher hip, bring your weight onto the leg of the higher hip leg, raising the other foot slightly so that the hips are even, employing the muscles on the side of the hip and down onto the side of the thigh. And for your higher hip leg, these will be quite strong muscles. So it works like a pulley. These are long, fairly strong in this case, and shorter here on the inner thigh for the higher hip. Let's hold that for another 5 seconds. 3, 2, and 1. Bring the weight into the other foot. So if you have a lower hip leg, let that be the lower hip. Don't let this hip flare out. Don't take the load into the back. Bend the other knee, that is the higher hip leg, so that your hips can be level. Strengthening these muscles that are weaker on this side because they get short on the side of the hip and the thigh. And this is the side, as you do this through the weeks to come, that we want to put our emphasis. So if you have time, do it twice on this side of the lower hip, the weaker hip, and one time on the higher hip side. Feel your balance through the foot, the knee right over the ankle. For 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And bring it down. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, forward. Come into plank pose. You can have knees up or knees down here. Fingers are spread, weight in the heels and balls of the hands. Strong through the belly, lower ribs tucked. Bring the elbows in, knees come down if they haven't been down. And we'll come into Sphinx pose. So you're on forearms. Keep the gaze down just in front of the mat with the attention on those hinges in the neck so that your neck is long and smooth. The cervical spine is a gentle curve. And also, although we're lifting up through the shoulders and kind of the back of the mouth, we don't want any hinging in the lower waist, in the back. So keeping some length in the back, the spine, in order to avoid that hinging. And coming into the breath. May we have confidence based on the simple fact that we are born and we are good. Bring the torso down, hands come under the shoulders, push up into your form of downward dog. You can always do a forearm downward dog if you would like. Knees are soft, spine is long. Paddle the heels up and down, opening up in the backs of the legs at the same time, long through the arms, long through the sides of the body, hips coming back to the wall behind. One more time into plank, strong through the belly, lower ribs tucked. For 3, 2, and 1. Elbows come in, knees come down. Arms come along the side. Lengthen down through the toes. Wiggle the hips around. Toes come down. You're on the fronts of your feet. Pelvic floor comes down towards the heels. Crown goes up. Bring up the head and shoulders and the legs. Arms follow. Fingers and toes reaching down. Crown reaching forward. Kneecaps towards the earth. For 3, 2, and 1. And bring it down. Bring the hands under the cheek for a moment and take a few breaths. And rising up, bring the right arm so that it is horizontal under the shoulders. Left knee bends and left hand comes back to catch clothes or ankle or foot. Press the foot back into the hand. Stretch from hips down through the knee, perhaps rising up slightly in the knee, in that thigh area. and let it come down. Other arm comes, left arm comes horizontal under the shoulders, right leg bends, right hand catches. Stretch from hip out through knee. And perhaps as foot pushes into hand, you lift up a bit. And bring it down. So those are half bow positions. Now we're going to bring arms along the side, bend both legs, head and shoulders rise, fingers go back towards those feet and legs, and that might be where you stay, or you might take hold of ankles or feet, pushing feet into hands, lifting from hips through knees, keeping a nice curve in the back, not having such a sharp bow that you have any hinging at the back of the waist or any hinging at the neck. And bring it down. Bring yourself back into child's pose with hips going towards heels. Arms are extended out in front. You're on your fingertips, so you get a nice long stretch down the arms, down the sides and the spine to the hips. And after that bow, you might feel like sliding the hands back and taking a little bit more of a C curve in the spine as a counter position to the bow and the sphinx. Then we're going to bring our hands forward. We're going to do a bear crawl. It's a little difficult, so if you don't want to do this, you can always do a cat-cow. But if you want to try the bear crawl, the hands take the weight and the toes take the weight. So I tuck my toes and my knees are slightly above the ground. Alternately, hand and foot, alternate hand and foot are crawling forward, and hips stay low to the extent that you can. And then coming back slowly. This is good for the multifidus, the little strong muscle fibers that go up between the vertebrae, and that are very important to our bilateral balance. Let's do that one more time. You might go a little faster if you want. Something you can do now and then to ensure that you're going to have good bilateral balance. And then coming up, let's take a pause, bring one hand to chest and one hand to belly. Tuck your toes or find a comfortable place. Just let the energy integrate through your body. Letting yourself feel the energy spreading out. And coming up to a standing position once again. We're going to do a dancer balance. So again, you might want to have a chair in front of you. Just a reminder, this is going to be a balance where you're on one foot, you hold your leg, it goes up in the back, and the other arm goes forward. You can always bring that arm onto a chair or couch if you would like. Finding a focal point, finding that balanced centered foot with the weight coming down through those strong thigh muscles, the knee right above the ankle, into the center to outer heel, and onto the first 3 toes. When you raise your foot, bring your hand to the inner side of the foot. So I'm coming into the inner arch side of the foot to hold the foot. And this will keep you more centered. Kick up in the back, knee coming up, and then bring the arm forward. It can be palm up or palm down. Let the chin come towards the shoulder. And the knee is more or less right behind the head. And play with this, coming down. Take a little rest. And we'll try it one more time on that side. Once again, bending the knee, bringing your hand to the arch side of the foot, kicking back, then bringing the arm forward. Chin goes towards shoulder, staying centered with the knee in the back for 3, 2, and 1, and coming back. And always feel completely welcome to modify this in any way. Just giving this a try today. Bring the weight into the other foot, balanced, centered, dynamic leg. Bend the knee, grasp the foot on the arch side. Kick back with the foot. Find your focal point, where eyes might be out to the horizon. And bring it back. Take a moment to shake out. And we'll try it again. Weight into that foundation leg. Hand on the arch side. Find that place of balance. Knees are close together. Kick back. Other arm comes forward. Knee is firm but soft. Balancing through the foot and the dynamic leg for 3, 2, and 1. And bring it back. Let's come to a lying position. We've worked hard. We have been warriors. We've faced our fears. For a moment, just let yourself sink back into the earth, assured that the earth will hold you. Relaxing down through the back of the skull, the shoulder blades, hips, feeling the calves on the mat, the heels, the arms. Take 2 breaths, centered, deep center, up to heart center. Ribs expanding and contracting as the diaphragm opens and closes. Then bending the knees and bringing them above the hips, head and shoulders rise. Fingers come to the outside of the skull on the back on each side. One leg extends out, the other one comes up towards the chest, slowly extending and flexing legs. A slow leg extension like this brings toning to the deep muscles in the abdomen. Continue with this. If you would like, you can bring one elbow towards the opposite knee. This is another way to tone the multifidus, those small fibrous muscles between the vertebrae, for bilateral balance. For 3, 2, and 1. And bring it down. Let's take a nice long stretch. One hand pulling up one wrist and the heel going down, making space through the side and the torso, unsticking the organs from each other, and then the other side. Bringing gentleness to the body. Bring the feet so that they are several inches below the buttocks, knees bent. Arms are going to be along the side. We're coming into bridge. Notice the places of stability here as we come into bridge. The soles are our strong place of stability as they press down, hips begin to rise. Shoulders are a place of stability. Tuck in the shoulder blades and shoulders. Clasp hands under the hips, arms become a place of stability. Lifting the hips, using the glutes and the hamstrings to hold the hips up, but not coming up too far, maintaining that curve that is smooth in the back. It's a natural curve, no forcing in the lower waist. And then relaxing through the shoulders, let the hips come down. Take a breath. Once again, establishing the soles of your feet and the shoulders, tucking them in, hips rise, glutes engage. Arms are aiding in the support. If you would like to raise a leg with knee coming up to the chest and foot reaching up and then coming back, your option. Make sure you have your weight well supported by the other leg as the opposite knee comes up. You're doing that and foot rises and comes down, and then let the bridge come down. Arms come out from the shoulders horizontally, center the hips, knees come bent over the hips. Knees go over to one side, just about halfway down to the floor, hovering and coming back up through center and over the other side. Gently rocking over the sacrum in the back, a little massage for the lower back. And you'll notice that the rotation here is in the hips. So the lumbar spine doesn't do much twisting here. One more time on each side. Come up through center, bring the feet down and extend the left leg out. The right foot comes up by the left thigh. Lift the hips and bring them over to the right a bit. This is a very important move. So we're bringing the hips slightly over to the right. The left leg is extended. We're going to twist over towards the left. The right foot comes up onto the left thigh, and we roll through our hips gently, very gently, turning the hips, not putting much weight on this top leg. Let it be just hanging there so that we're not demanding too much torque in the lumbar spine. Rather, our hips are doing the turning. They may even be perpendicular to the mat here in this twist. And now just enjoying the twist, relaxing down through jaw and shoulders and arms, through thighs and calves and the bottom of the feet. One last breath here. Roll back through center, center the hips. Let the right leg extend out. Left foot comes up by the right thigh. Lift the hips, bring them over to the left a little bit so that you're really more on that right hip. Left foot comes up onto right thigh, very gently rolling over. No weight on that top leg, allowing the leg to just hang there, adjusting the foot to wherever is comfortable. Of course, by turning the head, you might bring some more torque, rotation through the cervical spine, down through the thoracic spine. Find a place where you can be completely comfortable. Bringing kindness to yourself. One more breath. And roll back to center. Bring the hands behind the thigh of one leg. Reach that heel up towards the sky. Soft in the knee. Put some extension as you flex the foot and point the foot. Flexing and pointing. Feeling the aliveness in the calf muscle. Then support that leg as it comes out to the side, the same side as the side of the leg. Opening up space through the intestinal area. Lifting up, giving some support as it comes over midline. Giving some ungluing to the tissue that comes down the side of the thigh, the side of the lower leg. Come up through center, give that knee a hug. Bring it over towards the armpit, opening up a little bit more through the hips. Spine very stable here because it's being supported by the earth. And let that leg become the extension leg as the opposite leg comes up, hands behind the thigh, heel towards the ceiling, knee soft, flexing the foot and extending. Relaxing down through the back of the neck. Then opening the leg out to the same side. Breathing into the space of the belly. Inhale the leg back up and over midline, giving it some support. Ungluing that connective tissue along the side of the leg. Coming up through center, giving the knee a hug. Bring the knee over to the armpit. Release the leg and find a comfortable place to lie for just a minute or so. Shoulders comfortable. Hips easy against the mat. Knees might be bent, leaning against each other, or the legs might be extended. Letting eyes be deep in their sockets. Nose, lips, tongue soft. Heart slowing. Lungs softly lifting and falling. Soft through the stomach, pelvic floor. The backs of the thighs, the calves. Soft in the bottom of the feet, the toes. Softness, perhaps some tingling in fingertips and palms. Open through the eyes and the elbows. Soft through shoulders. Back of the neck. Open in the crown. Rooted in the earth. Open to our vast nature in the universe. You're coming back into your day. Bring some movement to fingers and toes. Maybe roll the wrists and ankles a few times. Give your knees a hug. What gentleness can you bring back into your day? Confident, facing your fears. And then rolling over, we'll come up to a brief sitting position. May we be healthy. May we have space in our minds and our bodies. May we face our fears And may we be brave enough to be gentle to ourselves. Namaste. Great to be with you, Gulia. Good to see you. Stop.
Thank you.